discussions on the 16th chapter of um, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we will be beginning with some kirtan. Namo Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Charini Nirvishesha Chakari Pastyadishadharini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Charini Nirvishesha Shunyavari Pastyadishadharini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Jaya Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Nitai Gaura, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada, Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Gurudev, Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev. Shri Shankar Gaura Hari Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Gaura Premi Devi Dasi. So again, thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We're going to conclude the 16th chapter of Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and also we're going to conclude the Lord's discussion and explanation of the Atharam verse from Bhagavatam. We'll start with some prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gnanantinashlakaya Chakshuramitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manokishtam Svapitam Yena Bhutale Vedamahyam Dani Swapnantikam Om Vishnuvidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shriman Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanivari Paschati Deshatarine. So thank you all again so much for joining us, and pray for all your blessings to trust us with this path. We try to present an overview of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. This wonderful book is based on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is by the Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and it's the biography of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Lord's appearance day was yesterday, and we're so fortunate to have all these volumes of literature about his life and about his teachings, because he has been so extraordinarily merciful in this age of Kali to grant us the easiest but the highest methods of devotional service, especially the chanting of the holy names, so that we can attain the most exalted destination, devotional service to Radha and Krishna and Sri Vrindavan Dham. So we will chant the invocation prayer, which is the 18th verse of the first chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. And the translation is: Glory to Shri Chaitanya and Nityananda, glory to Advaita Chandra, and glory to all the devotees of Sri Gaura Lord Chaitanya. So we will start with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's conclusion to his explanation of the Atharam verse. So we'll recap that verse, which is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 10. Sutta Vacha Atmarama Shramaneo Nirgranta Api Guruprame Kurvanti Ahitakim Bhaktim Ittam Bhuta Guno Harihi. The translation is: Sutta Goswami said, all different varieties of Atmaramas, and parenthesis, those who take pleasure in the Atma or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. So we continue with our reading. Continuing to explain the Atmaram verse, Lord Chaitanya pointed out that the word Atma also indicates all varieties of the personality of Godhead. Generally, the personality of Godhead himself, Krishna, and his different expansions are all known as the personality of Godhead. So it's a very nice way that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining it, the varieties of the personality of Godhead. the incarnations of Krishna as innumerable as the waves on the ocean, as the Srimad Bhagavatam describes. But these incarnations of the Lord are all varieties of Him, Vishnu Tattva. And in no way do these incarnations ever become human or ordinary living entities like us. And in no way can a living entity actually become a variety of the personality of Godhead. The Lord alone is Himself and able to incarnate and expand Himself. And we are not able to not only equal Him, but ever surpass Him. Anyone who is engaged in the devotional service of any form or expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also called Atmarama. So this is our position. We can't become the Lord, but we can become a servant of the Lord. And when we do so, then if the Lord is referred to as Atma, then those who take pleasure in serving the Supreme Atma are His devotees. And this is another explanation of Atmarama. All such devotees engage either in the regulative principles of devotional service or in devotional service and transcendental love. So we've discussed these two divisions before when the Lord was explaining them to Sanatana Goswami. Those devotees who are engaged in the regulative principles of devotional service are those who are practicing sadhana bhakti. And those who are in the devotional service and transcendental love, that is those who are able to attain the mood of the residents of Vrindavan, are those who are Raganuga Bhaktas, right, who are in Raga love with the Lord. These two groups of devotees are each divided into three categories: eternal associates, those perfected in devotional service, and those newly engaged in devotional service. Newly engaged devotees can be divided into two groups: those who have already attained attachment for the Lord and those who have not attained such attachment. So now we have these two categories, the devotees in sadhana bhakti and the devotees in raga bhakti, and then there is more categories that these devotees can be divided into. So each group can be divided into four each, and that will give us 8 groups in total. So these 4 groups are these subgroups. Those who are eternal associates of what we know as the Nitya Siddha devotees who are eternally liberated. Those who are perfected in devotional service means those who become Nitya Siddha devotees by practicing the rules of bhakti, sadhana bhakti. So they become sadhana siddha devotees, right? Devotees who have attained perfection at siddha by sadhana. And then we have those who are newly engaged in devotional service, and they can be divided into 2 as well. So that's how it gives us 4. And those 2 are those who are matured in their devotional service, even if they haven't attained perfection yet, because they have attachment for Krishna, and those who are not yet at the level of attachment. So they could be called immature devotees. And so we have these 8 groups. When considered according to the 2 divisions of devotional service, namely due to attachment in transcendental love, raga bhakti, and under regulation, sadhana bhakti, these classes of devotees become 8 in number. As we said, 2 times 4. By following the regulative principles of devotion, the perfect associates of the Lord are further divided into 4 classes. So these 8 groups are further divided into 4 classes according to the relationships that they attain with the Lord. That is, the servants, the friends, the parental superiors, and the fiancés. Just as some devotees are perfected by the execution of devotional service, so some are eternally perfect. Of those following the regulative principles of devotional service, they are advanced and the beginners, totaling 16 categories. So we said in the beginning that there's 8, and that 8 is now multiplied by 4, and that gives us 16 groups of devotees who are in the sadhana bhakti state level and division, and we have 16 who are in the raga bhakti division. And in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, there are also 16 types of devotees. Thus, the Atmaramas can be considered to exist in 32 divisions. So I'm just going to recap that. So initially we had Raga Bhakti and Sadhana Bhakti, and there's 4 divisions each in those. And all of those devotees, so that means 8 groups now, can also develop one of the 4 relationships. So you have 8 times 4, which gives us 32. If the words Muni, Nirganta, Cha, and Api are applied to the 32 classes, then there are 58 different types of devotees. All these devotees can be described by one word, Atmarama. There may be many different kinds of trees standing in the forest, but the word tree describes them all. So when this word Atmarama is applied to the devotees who are serving the Lord, it includes all the different classes that the Lord has just explained. And so we understand that it's a collective noun for these devotees, for they all take pleasure in the devotional service of Krishna. Thus the Lord gave 61 different meanings to the Atmarama verse. In addition, he said that Atma means any embodied living entity, from the first living creature Brahma down to the ant. He cited a verse from the 6th chapter of the Vishnu Purana, in which it is stated that all the energies of the Lord are spiritual. Although this is the case, the energy which is known as the source of the living entity is called spiritual. But the other energy, which is full of ignorance and is manifested in material activities, is called material nature. Even in the material creation, the living entities are innumerable. If by chance a living entity in the material world can associate with a pure devotee, he can engage in the pure devotional service of Krishna. Formerly, I thought of 60 different meanings for the Atmanama verse the Lord told Sanatana Goswami, but here another meaning has come to my mind by your association. So I must clarify and apologize. I think that I mentioned before that there were 64 meanings, kind of a combination of number being stuck in my head and Wednesday evening anxiety before class. But the Lord is explaining that it was 60, and now He's explained one more, the verse in one more way, which He credits to Sanatana Goswami's association. And so that brings us to 61. So this extra explanation goes like this. So if the word Atma is used to describe any embodied living entity, that can be referring to goes all the way up to Brahma, down to the ant. And because of misidentification with the body, when these living entities, all of us, when we think of the Atma, self, we think of the body. And this is because what we know is the body. In our conditioned state, we don't have an idea of the existence of the soul, which is our reality. So therefore, in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna calls the living entity. So when Arjuna asks who are the knowers of the body, Krishna refers to living entities as Kshatriya. This is what the Lord means here. Because we know our bodies, we just know our bodies. But the Lord is more superior because He is, although we are of the same quality of the Lord as being spirit, but the Lord is the knower of all bodies. So that is the difference. We may have the same quality of the Lord, as Lord Chaitanya is explaining, but we don't have the abilities of the Lord to know everyone. So because of our misidentification, we're thinking of ourselves as this body. But as soon as we come in contact with the pure devotee, we come out of that conception of life and we understand that Atma, although it can refer to the body, actually, in the context of our true identity, is the soul. And then we stop our identification with the material body and we start to identify with the spirit soul, and we understand that the duty of the spirit soul is to become servants of Krishna, and then we take to devotional service. This is how this Atmarama verse can apply to the living entities in this situation. After hearing the different explanations of the Atmarama verse, Sanatana Goswami was struck with wonder, and he fell down in devotion at the feet of Lord Chaitanya. I understand that you are personally the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, Sanatana said, and by your breathing have come many manifestations of Vedic literature. You are the teacher of Srimad Bhagavatam, and you best know the meanings of the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is not possible for others to understand the confidential meanings of Srimad Bhagavatam without your mercy. So this is abundantly clear. Nothing that the devotees do or say is for nothing. Sanatana Goswami is clearly explaining that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can explain the Bhagavatam because he is the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is not merely a book, the personality of Godhead, as much as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the personality of Godhead. And therefore, as Krishna is unlimited, so is Lord Chaitanya, and so is the Bhagavatam. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu alone, being the person Bhagavatam, is capable of helping us understand the meaning of the Bhagavatam. And if we try to approach it as just any book, we will never get the meaning that is true. And this is why academic study is not acceptable. As the Lord goes on to explain, do not try to eulogize me in that way, the Lord told Sanatana. Just try to understand the real nature of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the sound representation of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna. As Krishna is unlimited, so each word and each syllable of Srimad Bhagavatam has unlimited meanings. One can understand these meanings through the association of devotees. Don't then say that Bhagavatam is simply a collection of answers to questions. So this is the unfortunate reality of people who don't take the Srimad Bhagavatam seriously, considering it in this way, collection of answers to questions, because it begins with the sages of Naimisharanya asking Sutta Goswami questions, and it goes on as Sutta Goswami explains the conversation between Maharaj Parikshit and Sukadev Goswami, where Maharaj Parikshit was also asking questions. But these questions are completely transcendental because they're all about Krishna. And so the Srimad Bhagavatam, being all about Krishna, is Krishna. And it can only be understood when Krishna gives us the mercy, and we get that mercy through the devotees to understand it. So it's just like if we have a person, and that person, there's many other people who try to give opinions on that person without getting to know them. Those opinions actually mean nothing because they could be nowhere near the reality of who that person is. But if someone tries to get information about that person from a confidential associate, from somebody who really knows about that person, then in that way, the understanding of that personality, their characteristics, that can be understood very clearly. And this is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Only the devotees who love Krishna and therefore can know the real Krishna can know the Srimad Bhagavatam and can give us that knowledge as well. There were 6 questions put by the sages of Naimisharanya to Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami answered the 6 questions in Srimad Bhagavatam. There is a verse in the Vedic literature in which Lord Shiva says, as far as the Bhagavatam is concerned, I may know it, or Shukadev or Vyasadev may know it, or we may not know it. But actually, Bhagavatam is to be understood by devotional service and from a devotee, and not by one's own intelligence or by academic commentaries. So it doesn't matter how many times academics or impersonalists or others who try to understand Srimad Bhagavatam as if it's an ordinary book, no matter how many interpretations they may put forward, Srimad Bhagavatam always remains as it is. And we can only understand it through the devotee and through submissively engaging in devotional service. At the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 23, the sages of Naimisharanya asked Sutta Goswami, my dear sir, now that the Lord has departed for his own abode, kindly tell us whether the principles of religion have gone with him. How can we find such principles after his departure? The reply was given in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 43. It's a very famous verse. Krishne swadhamu bhagate dharma jnana divihi saham alo nashta drishamesha puranarko dinoditaha. And the translation is, after Krishna departed to his abode with all religious principles, his representation, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Mahapurana, remains as the blazing, illuminating sun. So these verses clarify to us about the personality of Bhagavatam, that when Krishna appeared to leave, he actually left behind himself in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're so fortunate in this age that besides Krishna as the Bhagavatam, we also have Krishna in his holy names, and we have Krishna in the Archa incarnation. By the mercy of the pure devotee, the Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, the forms of Krishna in these ways, Bhagavatam, the holy name, the deity of Krishna, are being spread all over the world so that everybody can actually have the personal association and the mercy of Krishna, so that we can all be delivered in this most horrible age of Kali. Lord Chaitanya then told Sanatana Goswami, I was just like a madman in describing this Atmaram verse in so many ways. Do not mind if I've said something mad, but if someone becomes a madman like me, he can understand the real meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam as I have explained it. So later on in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, we'll come to the meeting of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai. And we see that the Lord referred to them both as madmen there, but this is in no way a derogatory term. It's actually referring to how madly in love with Krishna they are. And in that way, they can enter these ecstasies that may appear perhaps mad to others, but are actually the height of devotional service. And when someone loves Krishna this much, then definitely they'll have the right understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam and be able to explain it in so many wonderful ways. So by developing this kind of madness, this very coveted form of madness, we will have that same good fortune of being able to understand Srimad Bhagavatam as it is. Then Sanatana Goswami with folded hands fell at the feet of Lord Chaitanya and prayed as follows. My dear Lord, you have asked me to prepare a book on the regulative principles of devotional service, but I belong to the lowest class. I have no knowledge. I do not know how such an important task can be finished by me. If you will kindly give me some hints about the preparation of such a book on devotional service, it may be that I shall be qualified to write it. So now the Lord has concluded his wonderful explanations, and Sanatana Goswami will be requesting the Lord's guidance on this particular task in devotional service that the Lord has given him, a book of the regular principles of devotional service, which we know is Hari Bhakti Vilas. But at the time when Sanatana Goswami had received this instruction, although he was very capable of writing the book, he is still humbly submitting before the Lord that he needs the Lord's guidance and the Lord's blessings. And this also gives us the good fortune that the Lord is therefore through the writings of Sanatana Goswami giving us his own guidance on these rules and regulations. So this is very nice because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave us a system of how to attain the highest love of Krishna and Vrindavan. And so he's personally also giving Sanatana Goswami these rules and regulations for us to follow so that we can actually achieve that. And that is, of course, again, what sets us apart from other Vaishnava traditions, what to speak of other Sanatana Dharma traditions, that we have this guidance and mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to achieve Raga Bhakti in particular. The Lord then blessed him, saying, by the grace of Krishna, whatever you write will come out of your heart and be accepted. As you have requested, I will now give you some notes that you can take down. The first and foremost point is that one should accept a bona fide spiritual master. That is the beginning of spiritual life. Lord Chaitanya then requested Sanatana Goswami to write down the symptoms of a true guru and the symptoms of a true disciple. The symptoms of a guru are described in the Padma Purana. This is a quote from there. A person who is a qualified Brahmin and at the same time has all the symptoms of a devotee can become a spiritual master for all classes of men. Such a devotee and spiritual master must be respected as God himself. Even though a person may be born in a very respectable Brahmin family, he cannot be a bona fide spiritual master if he is not a devotee of the Lord. One should not mistakenly think that a bona fide spiritual master has to be born in a so-called Brahmin family. The idea is that a spiritual master must be a qualified Brahmin, that is, he must be qualified by all his activities. So a Brahmin by qualification has someone who has all good qualities, that is, all qualities in the mode of goodness. And from this level, as compared to passion and ignorance, one can very easily achieve the transcendental level. So by being a Brahmin, of course, we get to that level of goodness, and being a devotee of Krishna actually takes us beyond that level to transcendental goodness. And this is how a devotee can achieve the Supreme Lord who is situated in transcendental goodness. Now, if someone is merely born in a family of Brahmanas, but he doesn't actually have the qualities of a Brahmin, he's not even in the mode of goodness, what to speak of being able to achieve transcendental goodness. And if such a person can't be attaining the level that the Supreme Lord is on, how is he going to be able to give Krishna to others? Because the duty of a spiritual master, anyone who takes discipleship, Prabhupada explains, is that he must be able to give Krishna. So if he doesn't have Krishna himself, because he's not qualified, Krishna is not residing in his heart, he's not able to explain Krishna and his teachings, then he shouldn't be a spiritual master. And this is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is clearing up first and foremost in his discussions. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam when Narada speaks of the different symptoms characterizing the four divisions of social life. Narada therein states that Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras should be selected by their individual qualifications. In his commentary, Sridhar Swami has noted that birth in a family of Brahmanas does not necessarily mean that one is a Brahmana. One must be qualified with the Brahmana's symptoms, which are described in the Shastras. In the disciplic succession of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, there are two great acharyas, that is Thakur Narottam and Shamananda Goswami, who were not born in Brahmin families but were accepted as spiritual masters by many famous Brahmins, including Ganga Narayan and Ramakrishna. So we've discussed these wonderful authorities before, Narottam Das Thakur and Shamananda Pandit. They were the Shiksha disciples of Jiva Goswami, and they thus came in the line of the six Goswamis. And they were known as the second generation after the six Goswamis, and they were tasked with spreading the teachings and also distributing the books of the six Goswamis, particularly in the Bengal area, Orissa, what is now present-day Bangladesh, Puri then. And these extraordinary devotees in particular had amazing good fortune. Narottam Das Thakur, although he wasn't born in a Brahmin family, but he had love of God that he received from the Padma River that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left in this river for him personally. And Shamananda Pandit, we recall, was given audience of Srimati Radharani herself, who blessed him, gave him the deity of Shyamasundar, who is now installed in Sri Vrindavan Dham, in the area of Silvakunj. And he was given a new name and tilak. He was basically initiated by Srimati Radharani herself. But both these persons were not born in Brahmin families. Yet they were so extraordinarily qualified that they got this kind of mercy that's beyond anything that we can even imagine. And so we see that spiritual masters must be accepted based on their qualifications. And this is so important because even in this day and age, the process of accepting Guru is taken so cheaply. People are very easily won over by mystical experiences that the person may have, and they would very easily take this as somebody being very spiritually elevated. But these experiences are quite material in nature. It's not even very clear if these persons are achieving even Brahman realization. And what to speak of then being able to understand Krishna. And the tendency is that such persons will sort of loosely put together some religious teachings from Hinduism, from Buddhism, from Christianity, so on. And this is somewhat interesting to people because they don't want to really follow a religion. It's not trendy anymore to follow a religion, to be adhering to practices, to be accepting a guru in the traditional sense, bowing down to the guru. Everybody wants to just have a sort of quasi-spiritual experience that will lead to some kind of otherworldly thoughts or living. It's actually quite strange because the analogy I can think of is if you would go to if you wanted to get a tertiary education, you wouldn't go to what we call the fly-by-night colleges that may promise you a lot but can't deliver anything because they don't have the ability to give you a proper education. So you'd want to go to a university, a college, or some kind of registered academic institute for higher education. Otherwise, that degree is useless. It's like anyone could print one out and give it to you. So in the same way, anybody could claim to be a guru because of some kind of experience, some kind of teachings that are culled from here and there. What is the result actually going to be? Where can this person lead you? A lot of the times, the so-called awakenings that these teachers may have, they don't even understand it themselves because it's a holdover maybe from the past, from their past lives. So they just build up like a cult around those experiences and people then follow it. But where it's actually going to lead to, nobody knows. This is something that we have to be very careful of in this age of Kali, where Prabhupada said that it's widespread cheating in the name of religion. In this way, there are symptoms which both the prospective spiritual master and the prospective disciple must have. And both the disciple and the spiritual master must see whether the other is eligible to become either a bona fide spiritual master or a bona fide student. One should then know that the only worshipful object is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one should learn the various mantras and sacred songs. So this emphasizes that aside from the guru, like we said before, the disciple also has to be qualified. So His Holiness Parthasarathi Das Goswami Maharaj was saying last night that this requires intelligence. Not everybody is going to actually have the intelligence to understand the need for a spiritual master, the need for a qualified spiritual master, and the need for that spiritual master to be able to guide one to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's actually the problem in this day and age, because people are still, even when they claim to be on a spiritual path, they're actually still trying to enjoy this material world. They haven't yet come to the understanding that this material world is only a temporary situation to actually teach us some lessons so that we start asking the right questions. They're still convinced that happiness can be achieved in this world. It takes a certain amount of intelligence for one to be able to see that all attempts at happiness are always futile. It will always be unsuccessful in some way or the other, or extremely temporary. And so that should prompt one to ask the questions: how can this ephemeral happiness be turned into real happiness? Now, on the flip side, we have the impersonalists, because they do get to that point of being frustrated with chasing material happiness. But then they conclude that because real happiness can't be searched out here in this world of form, form must be an illusion, and it must be that happiness can be achieved where there is no form. This is what leads them to believe that the ultimate reality, the ultimate bliss for any living entity is Brahman, formless, and the idea that they can just exist in Brahman, would they think that they could become Brahman, and feel at bliss for all eternity. Now we can understand that although this may seem to be an opposite of the material world, in the material world there's no situation that offers us a parallel where somebody can be in some kind of suspended animation, not able to move, not able to speak, not even able to think, in particular, because the soul doesn't have a vehicle, a body, in order to be able to do that. Where is such a situation as well that is desirable? We may find a lot of other situations that promise us happiness that don't deliver happiness. That is true in the material world. But we don't find a situation in the material world that even resembles this kind of existence that is promised in Brahman, that is actually able to give us happiness. That's because the nature of the soul will not be found. The nature of the soul, the happiness of the soul, is not to be found in that way. But rather than thinking that happiness is a world without form, what if happiness can be found in a world that has form, but that exists forever? A world that is full of knowledge, a world that is, we do agree that this world is an illusion, but that world is the reality, and this world is merely a reflection of that world. That would make a lot more sense than saying that this world is an illusion, because we're all present in it, and we can all very much agree that it's not existing, but it is a reflection. That's where its illusory quality comes in. And because of that, it is able to reflect happiness, but it can't deliver happiness. So our focus should be in attaining the kind of world where the happiness is real. And what is the missing link that makes that happiness real, and what the absence of makes the happiness in the material world not real? That is servitude. Because the material world is specifically designed to show us that when you're here and you are not in the service of Krishna, your happiness is temporary. But as soon as you add the service of Krishna, even your happiness in this world can actually be real. And after your passing away, you can attain a world where happiness is real and eternal. And this is the teachings of all the Vedic scriptures. This is the reality of what we're trying to attain in spiritual life. The Lord then instructed Sanatana to describe the symptoms of those persons who are eligible to accept the mantras, and to describe how the mantras should be understood and perfected by ritualistic performances. Then the Lord instructed Sanatana to describe initiation, morning duties, and duties of cleanliness, washing the face, brushing the teeth, and so on. The process of work and the prayers to be recited both in the morning and the evening. The Lord also told him to describe how one should worship the spiritual master, how to mark one's body with gobi chandan, how to collect tulasi leaves, how to wash the room and temple of the Lord, and how to awaken Krishna from sleep. Then Lord Chaitanya instructed Sanatana to describe different methods of worshipping the Lord with 5-fold, 16-fold, or 50-fold paraphernalia, how to worship the Lord by offering him arati 5 times a day, and how to offer food to Krishna and lay him down on his bed. Next, Lord Chaitanya instructed Sanatana to write about the characteristics of both the form of the Lord in the temple and the Shaligram Shila, and also to write about the effect of going to holy places where there are different temples of the Lord and seeing the form of God in the temple. Sanatana was also instructed to glorify the transcendental name of the Lord and to describe the different offenses one can commit while chanting the Lord's name or worshipping the deity. In the worship of the Lord, certain paraphernalia are used, such as a conch shell, water, incense, and fragrant flowers. The Lord instructed Sanatana to describe these, along with the chanting of prayers and circumambulation and the offering of obeisances. Other topics for Sanatana to explain include following the regulative principles of Purasharana, accepting Krishna prasadam, rejecting foodstuffs not offered to Krishna, and not indulging in defaming a devotee who has the actual symptoms of a devotee. So just a note, Purasharana is like a preliminary ritual before one worships the deity. So it can involve a few things. For example, in a traditional sense, offering fire oblations, chanting the mantras for the deity, Abhishek, and so on. Or it can be a little more simpler. It just depends on the deity and the required paraphernalia for worshipping that deity. And the important point here is not indulging in defaming a devotee who has the actual symptoms of a devotee. So once when Lord Chaitanya was asked who is a devotee, he said that one who chants the holy name is the best man out of the lot. So it means that since anyone could be chanting the holy name, we need to respect everyone and not defame anyone. Anyone can be a servant. The Lord is very dear to him. So this is something that we should be very conscious of always. Lord Chaitanya also instructed Sanatana to describe the symptoms of a holy man, the process of satisfying the sages, and the value of rejecting the society of undesirable persons and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam constantly. Also to be described how to follow the daily, fortnightly, and monthly duties, how to observe fasting on the Ekadashi day, how to observe ceremonies like the birthday of the Lord, and how to observe fasting, not only on Ekadashi but also on Janmashtami, Vamana Dwadashi, Ramanavami, and Narasimha Chaturdashi. Lord Chaitanya also instructed Sanatana to explain that it is helpful in the advancement of devotional service to avoid fast days that overlap with other days. So this in Chaitanya Charitamrita fast days is specifically referring to the Ekadashi fast days. So what does it mean when Ekadashi overlaps with other days? So in the Vedic calendar, the days are described from the lunar movements, decided by the lunar movements in relation to the sun. So we know from the Gregorian calendar that the days are decided only by the movements of the sun. So when the sun rises, this begins a new day. In the Vedic calendar, how the days are actually calculated is increments of 12 degrees. So as the moon moves 12 degrees away from the sun, that is, the reference point is from the Amavasya or the new moon day. So at the new moon day, the moon has to move 12 degrees away from the sun in order for that next day to begin. So when the moon moves to 12 degrees, then the new day is supposed to begin, the new lunar day. Now, if that start of the lunar day is happening after the sunrise, so that is, we can take the example of tomorrow. If a new lunar day is supposed to begin, it must begin before the sunrise tomorrow for it to be considered that lunar day. So for example, yesterday was the full moon. So today would be the first lunar day after the in the waning moon, because the moon is getting smaller after the full moon. So in order for tomorrow to be day 2 of the lunar cycle, it means that the moon has to reach that 12-degree point before sunrise tomorrow. If it reaches that point after sunrise, then the second day, day 2 of the lunar cycle, is skipped. It means that tomorrow is still considered the first day. That means today is carried over. The lunar day of today would be carried over tomorrow. And the lunar day 3 is going to begin on Friday. So I hope that was clear. Basically, it means that there's a possibility of skip days, or what you'd say is overlap days. So where an Ekadashi overlaps with the day before, that means that the Ekadashi day doesn't begin before sunrise, it begins after sunrise. And the 10th day would be carried over. The Ekadashi can't be observed on that same day. There can't be any mixing of the 10th day of the lunar cycle and the 11th day of the lunar cycle. That means that the Ekadashi is observed on the 12th day, which is known as the Dwadashi. And because the Ekadashi is technically considered to be occurring on that Dwadashi, it is known as a Maha Dwadashi. So this is how we observe our Ekadashi fasting. It's always either on the Ekadashi when it occurs properly, when the moon, the 11th lunar day begins before sunrise. That's called the Shuddha Ekadashi. It's a regular 11th day. And if there's any overlap with the 10th day, then the Ekadashi is celebrated. Then it's called an Ashuddha Ekadashi. It's not pure. And the actual Ekadashi day is observed on the 12th day. And this is what the Lord is advising Sanatana Goswami. This is based on a lot of scriptures that say that an Ekadashi that's mixed like that must not be observed. It actually gives power to the demons, it said. The Lord says that we must observe the Ekadashi in the correct way when there's an overlap, and that is not Dwadashi. Also to be explained were how to establish temples of the Lord along with the general behavior, symptoms, duties, and occupation of a Vaishnava. And at every step, Lord Chaitanya said, Sanatana Goswami should give documentary evidence on the Puranas. Thus, the Lord gave a summary of all the topics Sanatana should include in his book on Vaishnava Regulatory Principles. So the Lord is very nicely, very humbly guiding Sanatana Goswami to make sure that everything that he says is cross-referenced in the scripture. And the scripture is given by Lord Chaitanya himself. So if he is telling Sanatana Goswami everything, then that should be enough for it to be scripture. But still, he's telling Sanatana Goswami to reference it as well to other sources in the scriptures. And so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not just following the standard of a devotee, but even when he appears, when Krishna appears himself in the Bhagavad Gita, he also tells Arjuna, he guides Arjuna, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, we read in chapter 13, text 5, on what the sages say, on what the Vedas say. So the Lord is giving the knowledge to the sages, and he even appears as Srila Vyasadeva. So he is also setting the standard by following those instructions that he himself gave the sages and quotes from them. And so he's doing the same here. And so when we are understanding scripture, we must therefore always understand it from the right authority, and we must always quote it in order to make sure that our explanations are authorized. Sanatana Goswami was a great devotee of the Lord, and he was directly instructed to spread the cult of bhakti by writing many books. There is a description of Sanatana in the Chaitanya Chandrodaya, where it is said that Sanatana Goswami was one of the most important personalities in the government of Nawab Hussain Shah. Sanatana's brother Rupa Goswami was also a minister in the government, but both of them gave up their lucrative government posts to become mendicants and serve the Supreme Lord. Externally, the brothers became just like ordinary mendicants, but their hearts were filled with transcendental loving service and a great love for the cowherd boy of Vrindavan. Indeed, Sanatana Goswami was dear to all pure devotees of his time. And this brings us to the end of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings to Sanatana Goswami from the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And thank you all so much for your kind attention. And we will continue next week with chapter 17. So please join us there. Shri Shankar Gaura Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Are there any questions or comments or anything to be clarified that I can try to answer?
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Mataji, just as Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna, can it from that be inferred that Chaitanya Charitamrita is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
That's actually very interesting. I thought about that also. I have not yet asked my seniors to clarify that thought, but we generally take that the literature's discussions, anything that is related to the Lord, actually is the Lord. Especially since Chaitanya Charitamrita is being presented by pure devotee Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So in that way, we can take it be the Lord Himself, and its exalted status is so it's so confirmed that there's a quote by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur where he said that if you had to lose everything, if you were able to retain Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, then not all would be lost. And if you had to lose any of the two, you could actually lose Srimad Bhagavatam, and still you wouldn't lose anything, as long as you had Chaitanya Charitamrita. But if you lost Chaitanya Charitamrita, then all would be lost. And I agree with that, because basically Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his life and through his teachings, he actually explains everything in Srimad Bhagavatam, being the Lord himself, being Bhagavatam in a personal form. But he also gives us more through his life, especially in his later pastimes, more details about those very deep, very intimate relationships in Vrindavan. And so I feel like Srila Prabhupada also solidified the exalted status of Lord Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the fact that he actually translated Chaitanya Charitamrita first, and made sure that we have this most valuable, precious book. And then he actually set about with Srimad Bhagavatam. But I will confirm as well with my seniors and get back to you. I hope that's okay.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Are there any other comments or questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Maharaj,
you,
today we
Gustavus.
thank you, Maharaj. Today, Mataji, we welcome Sadhika Mataji. Mataji joined us for the first time in our Zoom. So welcome to Mataji. Hare Krishna, Sadhika Mataji.
Welcome.
Mataji, any questions or comments from your side? Sadhika Mataji. Okay, Mataji is not saying much, but welcome. Maybe she's got a sound issue. Welcome to Damodar Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Damodar Prabhu, welcome. And welcome to Bhaktan Kodura Paul. Welcome, Mataji. Any questions or comments from you? Okay.
Thank you,
okay, Mataji.
everyone,
Thank you so much
for joining.
Hare Krishna.
We're going to continue with a wonderful bhajan about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We sing this to glorify him and his primary associates, to continue our mood of glorifying him today, which is known as the Festival of Jagannath Mishra. Today is a festival where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father, Jagannath Mishra, celebrated the birth of his divine child, and distributed a very wonderful feast in honor of that. And this prayer is by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. It's sung almost daily in all the temples where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is worshipped. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Guru Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Guru Tumavina Kedaru Jagat Samsare Patita Pavana Hetu Jabhavantara Patita Pavana Hetu Jabhavantara Musamapati Prabhu Napai de Anga Musamapati Prabhu Napai de Ara Aha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Aha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Balokana Koro Ami Guru Dukhi Kripa Balokana Koro Ami Guru Dukhi Jaya Guru Sita Pati Adita Gosai Jaya Guru Sita Pati Adita Gosai Javaki Bale Pai Anyani Sai Javaki Bale Pai Anyani Sai Aha Swarupanatana Ruparaguna Aha Swarupanatana Ruparaguna Bhata Yuga Shri Mahaprabhu Lokana Bhata Yuga Shri Mahaprabhu Lokana Jaya Guru Shri Acharya Prabhu Srinivas Jaya Guru Shri Acharya Prabhu Srinivas Ramachandra Sangamage Narotamada Ramachandra Sangamage Narotamada Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jaya Guru Mure Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jaya Guru Mure Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jaya Guru Mure Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jaya Guru Mure. The translation is, My dear Lord Chaitanya, please be merciful to me, because who can be more merciful than your Lordship with these three worlds? Your incarnation is just to reclaim the conditioned fallen souls, but I assure you that you will not find the greater fallen soul than me. Therefore, my claim is God. My dear Lord Nityananda, you are always joyful in spiritual bliss. Since you always appear very happy, I have come to you because I am most unhappy. If you kindly put your glance over me, then I may also become happy. My dear Advaita Prabhu, husband of Sita, you are so kind. Please be merciful to me. If you are kind, naturally Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda will also be kind. O Swarup Damodar, personal secretary of Lord Chaitanya, O six Goswamis, O Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Raghunath Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. O Lokanath Goswami, my beloved spiritual master, Narottam Das also prays for your mercy. O Srinivasacharya, successor to the sixth Goswami, please be merciful to me. Narottam Das always desires the company of Ramachandra Chakravarti. Shri Shantai Gaurari Ki Jai, Shri Narottam Das Thakur Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shantai Gaurari Ki Jai. Thank you again so much for joining us this evening, and please join us next week. We will continue the discussions on teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.